Have you ever seen a moment so powerful, so unexpected, that even the highest-ranking officer in the Navy went completely silent? This story begins as a joke, an admiral teasing an old, quiet man at a SEAL graduation. But by the end of it, that same admiral stood frozen, staring at the legend who stood before him, a man they once called Iron Ghost. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Grow for Justice, where real stories of courage, respect, and redemption come alive. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Because this one, you'll remember for a long, long time. It was a bright morning at the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado. Rows of young men stood at attention, their uniforms crisp, their faces filled with pride. They had survived Hell Week, freezing surf torture, brutal runs through sand, and sleepless nights that broke most men. Now, at last, they stood as Navy SEALs, the elite of the elite. In the audience sat families, proud mothers, fathers, and wives. Among them, a quiet older man in plain clothes sat beside his teenage daughter. His hands were weathered, his eyes calm, his posture straight, as if discipline still lived in every muscle. He clapped softly as the young graduates were called up one by one. He didn't wear medals or a hat with insignia. There was nothing that marked him as military. But the way he sat, unmoving, focused, caught the eye of a few officers nearby. He wasn't cheering loudly. He wasn't taking pictures. He was simply observing. When the ceremony ended, the admiral, a tall, confident man known for his humor, stepped forward to congratulate the families. He walked row by row, shaking hands and joking with parents. When he reached the quiet man, he smiled and said casually, "You look like you've been through BUD/S yourself, sir." The man smiled faintly. "A long time ago," he said. "Oh, really?" The admiral laughed. "Maybe I should ask for your call sign then." The crowd chuckled. The admiral meant it as a light-hearted remark, the kind you throw to break tension. But the moment the man replied, the air shifted. He looked up, eyes cold and sharp, and said softly, "Iron Ghost." The admiral froze mid-laugh. For a heartbeat, everything went still. The murmurs, the clapping, even the sound of the ocean seemed to fade. "Iron Ghost," he repeated under his breath. His face changed. His posture straightened. Every SEAL in earshot turned. Some looked confused. Others, especially the older veterans, went pale. Because that name wasn't just a call sign. It was a legend whispered through SEAL teams for decades. The man before them wasn't just a veteran. He was a ghost of the old wars, the one whose operations were so classified they didn't exist on paper. Missions in places never mentioned, rescues no one ever claimed, targets that simply disappeared. The admiral took a step back. "Sir, your Iron Ghost?" The older man nodded once. He said quietly. "That part of my life ended when my team didn't come back." The admiral swallowed hard. He had read about him, a name buried deep in military archives. Rumors said Iron Ghost had led an extraction in 2004 that saved 6 SEALs pinned behind enemy lines. He had gone dark for 72 hours, returned alone, covered in blood and sand, carrying one unconscious man on his shoulders. After that, he vanished from active records. No medals, no interviews, just gone. Now here he was, sitting quietly as a father, watching his son graduate. The admiral composed himself. I didn't know, sir. It's an honor." The man just smiled. "Don't salute me. Salute them," he said, nodding toward the new SEALs. The admiral nodded, still speechless. The crowd, sensing the shift, watched silently as whispers spread. "Who's Iron Ghost?" someone whispered. "He's real," another said. As the ceremony continued, the admiral couldn't focus. He kept glancing back, his mind racing through everything he'd heard about the legend. How he once guided a team through the Hindu Kush Mountains after their extraction helicopter was shot down. How his radio went dead, but his mission didn't. How the word iron came from the fact that he was shot twice, but kept moving. And Ghost, because no enemy ever saw him twice. After the ceremony ended, the admiral approached again. "Sir, I never thought I'd meet you," he said quietly. "You trained the men who trained me." The older man nodded. "And now it's your turn to train theirs." They spoke privately for a few minutes, the Admiral's tone shifting from playful to respectful. He asked the man why he never took the honors he deserved. The man's answer was simple. I didn't do it for medals. I did it for the ones who didn't come home. His words hit like a hammer. Moments later, his son, one of the new graduates, walked over, still unaware of who his father truly was. Dad, I made it, he said proudly. The Admiral stepped back, studying them both. You didn't tell him? He asked. The father smiled. He didn't need to know who I was. He needed to become who he is. The Admiral nodded, deeply moved. Then, in front of everyone, he snapped to attention and saluted the old SEAL. The crowd fell silent. Other officers followed. Soon, every SEAL standing nearby saluted him. Not for rank, not for ceremony, but for legacy. The son looked around, confused. Dad, what's going on? His father placed a hand on his shoulder. Just respect, son. Earn it the way they did. That night, word spread through the base like wildfire. Iron Ghost is here. He's alive. He watched his son graduate. Younger SEALs who had grown up hearing his name walked the corridors in disbelief. They said he once dragged two teammates through an ambush after taking a grenade blast that should have killed him. Others claimed he single-handedly disabled an entire enemy camp to rescue a captured Marine. No one knew which stories were true, but everyone agreed on one thing. Iron Ghost was legend. Meanwhile, the man himself sat quietly in his truck, looking out at the ocean. He didn't think of the past. He thought of his team, the ones who never came back, and the promise he made over their graves. I'll protect the next generation. The next morning, the Admiral sent 2 officers to his home. They didn't come to award him. They came to invite him back, not to fight, but to teach. The Navy wanted him to speak to new SEAL candidates, to share the values that built the teams that still carried his name in whispers. When he opened the door, the officers stood at attention. One of them said, Sir, Admiral Rogers requests your presence at the base. He said to tell you this. Legends don't retire. They guide. The man chuckled softly. Tell the Admiral, I'll think about it. He looked past them, where his son was loading gear into his truck, preparing for his first deployment. Pride flickered in his eyes. It's their time now, he said quietly. But maybe I'll tell them a few stories about ghosts. Weeks later, the base auditorium filled with hundreds of SEAL recruits. The lights dimmed. The Admiral stepped to the podium. Gentlemen, he said, today you meet the reason why our creed exists. A man who carried honor when the world forgot what it meant. When the curtain parted, Iron Ghost stepped out. The recruits rose instinctively to their feet. Silence fell that he didn't speak loudly. He didn't boast. He simply said, You're here because you want to be the best. But being the best isn't about strength or speed. It's about how far you'll go when there's no one left to tell you what to do. When the radio's dead, when the light's gone, when every voice says quit, what will you do then? He paused, scanning the room. You'll move. You'll fight. You'll finish. That's what makes you SEALs. Then he looked at the Admiral, the same man who once joked with him, and nodded. The Admiral returned the salute with shaking hands. From that day, Iron Ghost wasn't just a legend whispered in stories. He was a living reminder of what courage looks like when no one's watching. His son carried his call sign on his helmet. Ghost 2, honoring the man who had taught him that the truest warriors are often the quietest ones. And the Admiral? He never joked about call signs again. Because once you've looked into the eyes of a man called Iron Ghost, you don't forget. And that's the story of the SEAL Admiral who thought he was making a joke until he met the legend that history tried to forget. If this story gave you chills, hit that subscribe button right now to join our community here at Grow for Justice, where we honor real courage, sacrifice, and the unseen heroes among us. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Because bravery like this deserves to be remembered everywhere.